Welcome to OhSister, where I unpack my Mormon sister missionary journals 10 years later. The last few weeks, I started each episode by talking a lot more about the emotional experience of being a missionary, and today I wanted to bring it back to some of the rules just to keep things interesting and make sure I'm not talking about the same thing over and over again. Helps me feel like I have more fresh ideas. And I realize I haven't talked about the dress and grooming rules yet, and those feel really important. I do talk about that a little bit in my journal this week too, which is cool. So the main idea that is underlying the dress and grooming standards is that you should not attract attention to yourself. And I think that's a good symbolic idea of how you're not supposed to attract attention to yourself as like an individual, as a missionary. Like, not, I mean, if I say it that way, it's like, yes, it's kind of obvious, but also like you're supposed to be seen as a missionary, not just like this random teenager or young adult walking around, but you're really supposed to feel that way too. So it's kind of another way of like losing yourself in the work, for better or worse. So I'm going to go ahead and read the dress and grooming guidelines from the White Handbook. And I found this cool PDF from the missionary White Handbook that is available online. So I'm going to go ahead and link that in case you're curious and you want to read more about this or the other things that missionaries are supposed to do. So I'll go ahead and just start reading it. Dress and grooming. Thou shalt not be proud in thy heart. Let all thy garments be plain, and let all things be done in cleanliness before me. D&C 42, 40 through 40. See also Alma 1, 6, and 7. Appropriate dress and grooming will help you earn respect and trust. Your appearance is often the first message others receive, and it should support what you say. Therefore, wear conservative professional clothing that is consistent with your sacred calling. Be neat and clean. Bathe daily if possible. Use deodorant. Keep your clothes clean, mended, and wrinkle-free. Never allow your appearance or your behavior to draw attention away from your message or calling. Okay, so far, nothing too crazy, right? Nothing too like, all right, nothing's super giving me red flags. These are all, I guess, things you can expect from like sort of a workplace environment. It is, I think, the choice of like your appearance should support what you say is like kind of interesting, but let's go. I'm gonna skip the elders outlines because I don't really care about that right now. I'll go ahead and talk about the sisters' guidelines. Sisters, modesty. Maintain a high standard of modesty. Wear clothing that is neither too tight nor too loose, is not transparent or revealing in any way, such as sheer, tight, or stretch fabrics, does not draw attention to any part of the body, and is not casual, wrinkled, sloppy, or faddish. Clothing should be professional in style and present a clean, well-groomed appearance. Outfits. Outfits should consist of suits, skirt and blouse combinations, skirt and jacket combinations, dresses, or jumpers. They should be tailored to fit well and be conservative in style and color. Skirts should reach mid-calf or longer. If there is a slit, it should not reach above the knee. T-shirts, sweatshirts, golf-style shirts, or other casual shirts, pants, and pantsuits are inappropriate. Shoes. Shoes should be practical, comfortable, and attractive. Flat-soled shoes or shoes with low heels are best. Avoid boot-style bulky footwear unless your mission president authorizes it. Accessories. Jewelry and other accessories should be simple and should not attract attention. Do not wear more than one earring in each ear. Tattoos, nose rings, other body piercings, or toe rings are not acceptable. Hair and makeup. Wash your hair frequently. The style and length of your hair should be easy to manage and should not call attention to itself. Makeup also should not call attention to itself. Okay, that was a lot of stuff right there. And I will say that since I went on my mission, this has been updated somewhat. I believe missionaries are now allowed to wear, or sisters are now allowed to wear pants. My goodness. What a shock. As well as like sun hats, which I was super jealous of because that change happened like right after my mission. But let me talk about what the rules were for me. And they're still pretty much the same. So there's a lot of like kind of vague, I know it when I see it, like standards of modesty things where it's like, well, I have to make sure what I'm wearing isn't too tight, but it also can't be too loose. So like that can be like kind of hard. It's like, that's pretty vague. You shouldn't wear anything that's sheer, like tight or stretchy. When in my mission, it was super popular and trendy to wear like stretchy, oh gosh, what are they called? Those like long stretchy skirts, maxi skirts. Yeah. I mean, maxi skirts now aren't do not have the same definition as like in 2014. A maxi skirt was like made of a stretch knit and it was like kind of a long skinny rectangle that stretches over you. And they were super forbidden when I was shopping for clothes on my mission. But actually it turned out when I got to my mission had a separate rule that since it's so cold and windy, as long as you find a maxi skirt that's not like super like clingy and inappropriate, we were allowed to wear them. So also our clothing couldn't draw attention to any part of the body, which is like, okay, how do you dress in a way that you don't draw attention to any of your body? Basically, the way that I got around this was I wore like, shirts that I bought. I wore dresses and skirts and shirts that I bought from like an elderly ladies clothing store. And so everything was like kind of boxy. Everything has like a pretty high collar. Everything is like elbow sleeve, elbow length or longer. I think I had at the beginning of my mission, I was worried about having too much luggage. So I just brought 2 skirts. I brought this horrible black skirt that was so ugly, but I felt like I should buy clothes that were ugly and that I didn't like. Like this was part of what I was doing when I was shopping for my mission was like I shouldn't like it very much. Like this isn't supposed to be me. This is supposed to be like a missionary. So I was kind of purposely looking for clothes that I like didn't really feel good in or didn't really like and maybe even were like I wasn't trying to find things that like looked well with my sort of coloring. I was looking for things that like looked missionary to me. So lots of like really kind of like bland, strong colors, like lots of blacks, which I normally don't wear, and like a deep royal blue, which is pretty but didn't look super good on me at that point. Um, Also, I think it's funny, there's this, like, sort of saying it but not saying it where, like, yeah, you're supposed to be attractive but not, like, attract attention, and not, like, flaunting it attractive, but, like, you should still look nice, like, they say shoes should be practical, comfortable, and also attractive, like, getting shoes that fit all 3 of those things is, like we all know that can be hard. And it says in our rules that our shoes are supposed to be attractive. Also, um, the thing that they say about makeup is that it should not call attention to itself. So, like, you should be wearing makeup, just not like too much. Uh, so also in addition to this, they have like a website where they update more specific things because as fashion changes, it can be hard for people when they're shopping for their mission to be like, is this gonna work? Like, what should I be wearing? So there's a website you can find, and it has like pictures of what different sisters are wearing to like match with the guidelines. And yeah, so just remember during all this time, I'm not only being a missionary, obviously. I'm not only being a missionary, but I'm like going by Sister Finlinson, and I'm trying to like completely change how I work, and like from my thoughts to my speech to the way that I relate with like friends and companions and all this. I'm also completely changing the way that I dress because, well, I did dress pretty modestly before, but I would wear like jeans and uh like a knit shirt that was like kind of tight fitting, and anything that I thought was cute, I was like, nah, that's not appropriate for my mission. So I purposefully was wearing clothes that I like felt kind of like dowdy or like not myself in. So, isn't that fun? So let's go ahead and read through my journal, starting with Monday, November 17th, 2014, Mission Day 48. This was a nice, chill P day, despite the lack of journal time. I got a very sweet family email, which I printed and placed next door, and then I drew a little arrows to show that I had updates from my two younger siblings. I read through it, it was very cute. But anyway, we went to JCPenney's in order to use a 15% off coupon on a brown skirt. I'm wearing basically two skirts at this point, my red mom one and my black A-line. And on the way, we stopped at a thrift store where I found and purchased a vintage red wool pencil skirt for $1, smiley face. Then we went to the mall and were there in, at least for me, a 3-hour zombie state. We also washed the car for the first time since I've been here, smiley face. After all that stuff, we hurried and packed and drove up to Allendale. Shannon and Kirk Schreiber weren't there for our appointment, so we just did planning/phone calls at the Carreri's home. Awesome story. I'd promised Sister Elliot that I would sing for real for her before she goes, and so I sang this year's audition pieces on the way up. I've never done that before. And it was good. I opened up, smiley face. I can do this. Big moment for Ally. Okay, a couple things. So yeah, I mentioned in here that I only have like two skirts. I have the black one, and then I said my red mom one. So that one was my mom had a red skirt from when she was in college, and it was like long enough, and it was not made of a stretch fabric, so I brought it with me on my mission, which I think is pretty cute. I still love to wear vintage pieces, and especially pieces that are passed down from my family or other people's family, so that's a kind of a cool way for me to still be sort of myself in this, even with all these clothing rules. But I have to tell you, the vintage red wool pencil skirt that I bought for $1, well, I do still have it. It's very cute. But I ended up realizing on my mission, I was like, it's just too tight and it's not long enough. So I knew I liked it, and I just shipped it home. One of I sent home packages like 3 or 4 times on my mission when I like got free books from people that I thought I should keep forever for like having my home gospel library someday. So every once in a while I got so much stuff that I would be like, all right, time to send things home. So I did send that wool pencil skirt home because I knew it would be okay, like for normal Mormon rules, like it worked with my garments and everything, but it just was a little bit too tight fitting and a little bit too short for my mission. I also mentioned being in a zombie state. This isn't really relevant per se to being a missionary. This is a little bit more like me and other like neurodivergent folks who just get like worn out and tired if you're like in a loud, um, big, busy, super crowded, super bright environment for a long time. So that's kind of anytime I go like to Walmart and we like hang out there forever, or I'm at the mall or something, I tend to like pretty quickly drain my batteries and I'm just sort of in zombie mode. That's what I call it. And I wrote about that happening, so it was still happening on my mission. Isn't that funny? I also talked about opening up and singing my audition pieces. So I will explain this. I think, first of all, that I think Sister Elliot had been kind of getting after me for being very like private, you could say. I thought I was just trying to not like, I was trying to not be myself too much. I was trying to just sort of be a missionary, but I think she could see that I was maybe taking it too far, or at least that's what she thought. And at least, like, for you and your companion, I guess it's nice to be able to, like, be a little bit more people for each other, even if you have to kind of fake it in front of other people. I don't know. But I think she had been, if I recall correctly, I think she had been, like, kind of bringing that up to me sometimes and, like, wanting to, like, hear me sing and, like, hear more about, like, what I like outside of, like, missionary and church stuff. So the audition pieces were every year, after I graduated high school, I auditioned to get into several universities' voice programs, and I got into a few, and I like had a full tuition scholarship. I remember I had at least a full tuition scholarship for UVU's program, and I think I got into some other schools as well, but I knew my only option really was BYU. So I applied other places in case I didn't get into BYU. And I did not actually get into BYU's music program, but since I got into the school, I went anyway, even though I could have gone somewhere else into the major that I wanted. Isn't that wild? So, and I thought, well, maybe I can just audition again. I guess I really thought, like, well, this is a school God wants me to be in, and so if I never get into the voice program, it's just not meant to be, you know? Because this is where the people have the most divine inspiration and revelation of who should be doing what. Uh, that's how much I was putting my future up into the air. But anyway, so I didn't get in when I auditioned right after high school. So then after my freshman year, before going on my mission, I auditioned again. Because if I got in, it would have deferred my spot until after my mission. But unfortunately, I did not get in that time. Um, but I did still remember the pieces that I had learned. I don't remember what they are now. But I guess I talked about this with Sister Elliot, and so she had me sing for her, which I am still pretty reticent about singing just randomly for people. Although, if you're someone I like know and it's like the right setting, I'm more willing to do it now than I used to be. But I did sing for her, and I remember like I wrote, I've never done that before, and it was good. I opened up. I can do this. So like I had been feeling worried about like, wow, I'm not really opening up and like asking for stuff and like remember last week I was very worried about that. So I think this felt like a kind of a big win in that way. And I thought it was sweet that I wrote big moment for Ally, not Sister Finlinson, but Ally. Okay. Tuesday, November 18th, 2014. Mission Day 49. This was a good day. Big smiley face. We drove up to Carberry to see Sister Young, Felicia, off. She's been working at a local cafe since she was 15, so we met there to eat the famous caramel rolls and give advice, tips, comfort, and excitement. And cards. I gave her one of my Christmas cards since she loves Christmas and I have like a billion from Rhonda and Mark. I'm a write slash I'm a write emails slash cards to her all the time. On our first week in Ellendale, we trekked into a woman named Doreen. She seemed disinterested, but today when we came by, she let us in, and we taught her about the restored gospel. That in itself was a miracle. And she wasn't very talkative. She'd barely answer our questions. So teaching wasn't very smooth, but we used silence a lot. And I could feel the spirit. Actually, at the end, we waited a good 5 to 10 minutes for her to say if she'd pray. But I got to go ahead and say the closing prayer. It was good for us to learn, and I think she felt loved. Huzzah for the work of the Lord. We also got to have a lesson with Jillian and Jason at the Crarries' home, and they are such natural missionaries. Luke, 4 years old, asked to say the opening prayer, which got Jason excited to pray next. And afterwards, Sister Crary super casually and naturally gave Jillian an Ensign magazine. And they all don't have the church filter, which, unfortunately, I still kind of have. Okay, I know this is the middle of the day, but there's already several things that I've talked about there, so let me just pause here to discuss. So, talking about going up to see Sister Young off, there was a member in the area who was getting ready for her mission, and she had just been set apart and was about to go out. I think she went somewhere in South America, if I remember correctly, but that's not super relevant. Anyway, it was really exciting for us to be around someone who's about to be a missionary, and she was really excited and nervous, and I guess the best part about that was the caramel rolls were really good. If you ever get a chance to go to North Dakota, you could probably get them in all of those kind of states around there, but you should try caramel rolls. They're like cinnamon rolls, but they cook them with a thick caramel sauce in the pan, and then when they come out of the oven, you just flip it over, and then the caramel sauce drizzles down on it, so you don't put cream cheese on it, but you can have it with vanilla ice cream. So it's pretty decadent and pretty fun to eat. But switching to a way less fun topic is talking about our potential investigator Doreen's lesson. I was so shocked reading over this again and seeing how blatantly manipulative we were being, and how I thought it was so good at the time, and I was writing that I thought she felt very loved when clearly she was not comfortable. So going back, I can sort of see the signs that she was not comfortable. She seemed really disinterested the first time we went there, but then when we went back, she just I think she was just kind of embarrassed and kind of grudgingly let us in. And she was, said she wasn't talkative. She wouldn't answer the questions that we were asking. And then I wrote that we use silence a lot, and we actually waited I remember looking at my clock after we were will you pray? And looking and watching the minutes go by, waiting for her to say something. And seems eventually we're all right, I don't think she's gonna talk. So I was okay, I guess I'll pray. But isn't that crazy that's what missionaries are supposed to do, is sit there and bully people into talking and agreement? Wow. And just the way that I say I think she felt loved I was so out of reality at that point. And I'm only 8 weeks in, oh my goodness, I'm a little bit nervous to see what else I'm gonna read over these next more than a year. Also, I wanted to point out that I was really impressed by Sister Crary, the one who we did a lesson at her house with her friend, and her friend had a son who was the same age as her son, so I guess that's how they had that connection. And they have that, she had the way of being able to talk casually about the church without being super intense like a missionary. And I was very impressed by that. Okay, I'll go back now. Oh, wait. Just heads up that I'm going to be talking about interracial adoption. So, yeah, here we go. Sister Devani Crary is so amazing. She was actually adopted at 9 months from India to a family in Utah. She shared her story of going back to India several years ago. She feels so spectacularly in awe to have been lucky enough to get out, in quotes, as she put it. She's a really cool mom. Her kids all get up at 6:30 and do their chores, practice their instruments, and prepare for their 8:20 school. How she does it, I don't know. President Crary is also awesome. He's working on establishing a dentistry in Ellendale, and he's super good at playing with his kids and being a good, friendly person. Sister Elliot had her last family dinner with them today, so she got a picture taken and had them write in her book. Also, the Kirstens when we got back in Scranton. We are currently waiting for cucumber face masks from the Grand Forks Mall to dry. We will peel them off not after 15 minutes as advertised, but after 50. Frowny face. Oh well, I'll just take a nap sometime tomorrow? Question mark. 11:15 p.m. Another frowny face. Up 6:30 a.m. question mark. Hours of sleep 7. Frowny face. Okay, so that was a wild jumping around of emotionally heated topics potentially, but I can't not discuss Sister Crary's adoption. Um I won't talk about it too much because it's obviously not my story, but I have been listening to this awesome podcast by a ex-Mormon. I think she goes by ex-Mormon or post-Mormon, I'm not sure. But a black ex-Mormon girl, Tara, I guess woman, Tara Herbert, who was adopted into a white Utah Mormon family, and she has a really good, like, she's done a Mormon Stories interview, and she's interviewed with other people, and she talks about adoption and that sort of thing in her podcast. So I'll put a link in the description because you should check it out if you're interested. But it's I'm glad that Sister Crary feels good about her family, like her adoptive family, and I'm glad she feels good about her experience. But I will say that is doesn't seem to be the case for a lot of people who grew up in that situation. Obviously, uh, adoption is just pretty traumatic, like no matter what. Like if you even if you have a really good loving family, it's just really hard on children to grow up away from their like sort of original culture and original like people, um, especially if you are in a different like racial community or even just like class differences can be like hard on the baby, you know. Um, but yeah, I have to just say it. I wrote it in my journal because I think I I I think it was like seen as like a way, it was seen as a way to be a faith promoting story, and I was sort of collecting faith promoting stories in my journal. That was like kind of the point of my journal, was to be a collection of faith promoting stories. um, and it's yeah, I think it's maybe not so black and white for many people. So I guess just that's like my sort of PSA, even though it's not my, like, I've never been adopted, or I'm not like, there's no adoption in my family. So it's not really my soapbox, but I wanted to mention that there is a soapbox and you should learn about it if you're interested. Um, and then, of course, we are having our like last week together as companions, and Sister Elliot's like going home like soon, like at the end of this week, I think. So I think she was feeling a little bit less worried about, going to the mall and getting fun face masks and doing like facials together, but I was just stressing the hell out. uh okay, so let's see what happens the next day. Wednesday, November 19th, 2014, mission day 50. So after planning today, Sister Elliot asked me what has been on my mind lately, and we eventually started talking about my concerns. It was so weird and hard. I pretty much felt like crying the whole time. I really need to practice venting or beef talks or conflict resolution or whatever you call it, because I struggle with that. Oh, because I struggle with that. It's so much easier to just let someone else lay out all their knowledge and beliefs and just sit and listen without adding anything. I found that whenever I try to, at least in my perspective, stand up for something I like, it always comes across as very offensive to Sister Elliot, which makes me hesitant to keep trying. Maybe that's why I need two trainers so I can learn to open up. Also, I'd thought before that I am too proud about my musical tastes, and I actually saw that as a good type thing. But I've realized, especially as Sister Elliot has pointed it out and accidentally said the same thing, that criticizing others' music is not a good practice. It comes across not as fun and educated discussion, but as a personal attack on the things we are most passionate about. Good thing I studied repentance last week. We had a good busy day, but my brain cannot appreciate that right now. I'm exploding with emotions. I guess transfer week is crazier than I'd imagined. Missions are good pressure cookers. All right. So I got to talk about this. I think part of the issue that I was having with sort of conflict resolution, whatever, um, like, is particular to me for sure. Like, not every missionary is like trained to not be able to deal with conflict. But I do have to say that I just came across something on the exmormon subreddit. It was a lesson plan from when I was in Young Women's, and it was a lesson about marriage. And I am going to have to go ahead and read you the story that I I learned and thought I was taught as good, appropriate communication and conflict resolution when I was in Young Women's. So here, let me pull it up. Okay, so I have it here. This is from the church manual. I'll put the link in the description to the ex-Mormon post. That where it's like the file is there. But this is in the section under spiritual preparation for marriage. There's a little story, and then you're supposed to have a discussion about what the story means. So here we go. The following story shows how one young woman's spiritual preparedness helped her as a new wife. Brad and Kathy received wise counsel from the temple sealer on their wedding day. Quote, "Arguments will arise. Learn to communicate. Pray over your differences and problems. Be forgiving. Serve one another unselfishly." Although they appreciated this counsel, it seemed so unnecessary at the time. However, they had been married just a short time when they had their first argument. Before they were married, Kathy couldn't imagine the two of them ever arguing. During the argument, both of them said things they shouldn't have, and Brad stormed angrily out of the house. Kathy had never felt such hurt inside before. Before the marriage, there had always been a loving parent or friends to turn to in times of trouble, but this time she felt alone. She knelt down and poured out her feelings to her Heavenly Father. She prayed that their hearts would be softened and that harmony would return to their home. After her prayer, she knew that no matter what challenges came, she wanted their marriage to be eternal. If they would seek the Lord's help, they would be able to solve their problems. When Brad returned, they greeted each other warmly and each apologized. Together, they knelt in prayer. So, uh, there are a few things in this little story that are maybe, not hurtful things. Like, if you want to pray and like calm back down, I think that's good. It's not great to storm out of the house if you're upset, but if you are at a point where you like are super dysregulated and you need to be alone for a minute, it's I think it is good to leave, although from my understanding it's even a healthier practice to say, I'm sorry, I'm feeling really upset and I don't want to like keep saying things that are mean. So I need a timeout. I'm going to take like a couple hours and I'm going to go be by myself. Can we get back to this in 2 hours and we can decide then if we're ready to keep talking? I think that would maybe be uh, a better thing to teach as like an ideal communication strategy. But and that they also apparently both apologize, which is good, I guess. But it hopefully their apology is more than just, oh, I'm sorry too. Hopefully they're a little bit more specific about like, oh, I shouldn't have talked to you that way, or like I shouldn't, I was impatient because I haven't been talking to you. I'm sorry, I haven't been telling you what's going on. But without that context, um, we don't know for sure how good the apologies were or how helpful. And also, now that I've pointed out the only good things, they don't talk about what the actual problem was. They just are like, well, we had a fight. Um, it was really scary. I felt really alone. I prayed. He came back inside. We both said, I'm sorry. And then we just continued on. And they never addressed the initial conflict. So they never like, okay, now that we've calmed back down, um, let's talk about the issue until we can sort it out. That's not the point of the story. That's not what is modeled. And I could go through and find all the years and hundreds of thousands of lessons just like these that I was given as a Mormon girl growing up, but I don't have to because this one story shows just how much I was primed to not have conflict resolution skills, or I wasn't even aware that I didn't know what conflict resolution meant. I didn't know that you were supposed to like talk stuff out and both get on the same page, and like um I was like told in other lessons and even stuff like in this one that like it's bad to be contentious and it's bad to like keep bringing up a conflict over and over again. Like you're supposed to just let it go and make sure your house is filled with love and peace and always just be like happy and let things go. Yeah, it's kind of a cycle of just like the ideal woman that I'm trying to be has no awareness of conflict resolution. Um, so let's go back. Let's go back to what was going on in the journal. Okay, so in my journal, I talk about how I feel really guilty and I'm having a hard time because I'm suddenly being expected to be able to like talk to my companion and say like talk about things like if I'm upset or if I'm struggling with something or if I'm like having a different opinion than them. So clearly when I was trying to actually do the thing and like talk about what was going on, I wasn't very trained in it. I wasn't very experienced, so it wasn't coming out very well, and it was coming out like a personal attack, which fair, it probably was. It's just too bad. It's too bad to look at this now. Um, because if I'm like more honest about the situation, I don't even think I was like necessarily upset about the music or whatever. I think I was just completely overwhelmed by everything, and I had been just like pushing everything about myself down for so long that, like a good pressure cooker, it was like not a good enough pressure cooker. And once I was like really being like tapped at by Sister Elliot, like, hey, I think something's going on, like we need to talk about this, like I'm upset about this thing, it was like I couldn't let it out in a slow like way. It was just, there was just so much that was always being shoved in that it was just kind of like an explosion of emotion. So this is one of the times when I can't I can't pretend that I'm not super overwhelmed. Like I write that we had a good busy day, but then I also write my brain cannot appreciate that right now. I'm exploding with emotions. Missions are pressure cookers. Like, oh my goodness. Blah. That really sucked. Let's go on. Thursday, November 20th, 2014. Mission Day 51. I can't believe this day came so fast. I think this is referencing Sister Elliot's last day. Um, Real quick though, and then I drew an arrow pointing to the next paragraph for some reason. This morning I woke up and realized I must have sleptwalked last night because when I went to bed I had my Leah coat on, but this morning it had been replaced by my scarf. Even though we had an intense weekly planning session today, we were also able to fit in a lesson with Jessica, applying the principles of scripture study. Jim and Darla, we talked about the plan of salvation, but it merged into faith, and then a dinner with Brenda. And then I left lots of empty space to write more in, but it looks like I never did. So we continue on from, I think, the results of the sort of pressure cooker trying to talk about stuff, and it's just a big pile of emotions that's not probably getting resolved at all. I do have a history of sleepwalking, and it seems to be related to stress. And I think it's very telling that after Sister Elliot's trying to get me to talk about stuff, and I start to try to talk about it, and it's totally overwhelming, and I totally have no idea what I'm doing, I sleepwalked that night. And I wanted to sleep with my coat on because I guess it was cold, and then I woke up with my scarf on. I have no idea what happened. This is the first time I know that I sleepwalk on my mission, and it starts to happen a lot, actually. I become known for sleepwalking a lot, which is, oh, it's probably, I know it's not a good sign for kids, and it's probably not a good sign for adults either to be sleepwalking, so. Especially if it's not like a regular thing, if it's just like stress related, like, that might mean something's going on. Maybe this is not a healthy environment. Oh boy. Friday, November 21st, 2014, Mission Day 52. We've had a lovely day, smiley face. We packed and cleaned and drove to Grand Forks. Then Sister Rowley and Sister Pattinson joined us to Bismarck. Sister Elliot will be visiting each of her areas in these 24 hours. We're staying in the Greg's apartment, and they fed us soup and bread, and I loved it, smiley face. We're going to the temple tomorrow, yay! I've been thinking that would be nice for a while now. That's all I wrote that day. It was, I guess, our last day together, like, in our area. We got everything packed up and cleaned, and we drove up to, all the way up to Bismarck, to where the mission, well, I guess, no, the mission home wasn't there yet, to where the temple was. And I guess it's kind of cool that in the last 24 hours of her mission, Sister Elliot, I guess through like all the driving and areas that we had to start and stop in, and she ended up going to all our areas. So that was probably cool for her to get to like reconnect with these really formative places. Um, and it's nice that the senior missionaries uh, had delicious food for us. I appreciate that now. And we're going to the temple tomorrow, so let's see what I say about the temple, yeah? Saturday, November 22nd, 2014, Mission Day 53. Holy guacamole! So much happened today that I put off writing until the end of P Day. You're in for a bore/treat, however it comes out. Well, I got to sleep on the floor of the Greg's living room. Got to. Sisters Rowley and Pattison were both sick, so we put them on the couches, and Sister Elliot did pretty well reclined on the ottoman. After a lovely breakfast and quick showers, we drove off to the Bismarck Temple. I was really wishing I'd thought of a question to bring when I realized I actually did need something. Peace. Saying goodbye to Sister Elliot hadn't sunk in yet, but I knew it would soon. The temple is definitely the place to go for peace. I totally received an understanding of the unity of God's work today. Temple work, family history work, and missionary work. We're all doing the same thing. And I then and now felt peace, knowing that we sisters, with a capital S, no matter our calling or the place we are, will always be anxiously engaged. Okay, it's not the end of the day, but I want to stop here because that's what I wrote about the temple. I, of course, didn't write really anything about what went on in the temple because that is a thing that you are not ever supposed to talk about, not in person or in your journal. That's something you promise not to talk about. Although I do say that I wish I had a question to bring, and then I realized that I did actually have a thing. So part of the the whole thing about the temple is it's talked up to you as being a place where you get the most power, spiritual power, the most revelation, and it's a place to learn a lot. But then when you go to the temple, it's not like there's anything different. It's just the same sort of ritual stuff every time. So I had my endowment, which is, you receive your endowment. I got my endowment in October of, no, it wasn't October. It was that summer because I went on my mission in October. So I got my endowment that summer before, and I was working on BYU's campus as a BYU employee that summer, so I made a point to go to the temple every week, at least once a week, sometimes more, after I got my endowment. So because I was okay, I gotta go and I gotta remember all the stuff that you're supposed to remember, and I gotta figure out how to what it means, and I gotta figure out how to get revelation or wisdom from this or something, because I didn't really get that the first time, and I knew that there was important things in the temple. So I went a lot even before my mission. I even did, most people before their mission, they maybe only just do the initiatory and the endowment for themselves, and maybe they go one more time. But I not only did that, but I went and I did sealings. Not for myself, just sealings for proxy, which, if you don't know what that is, it's another separate, that's what an actual marriage is in the temple. So you only do a sealing for yourself, for most people, once. There are cases where you get divorced and are allowed to get resealed or something, but that's usually not the case. But of course, part of temple work is doing everybody's temple work for anyone who's ever been alive and who's dead now. So not only did we need to do the baptisms, the initiatory, and the endowment for all the all the dead people, but we also needed to do sealings. So I did sealings before my mission. Why am I talking about this? Anyway, so I was already pretty experienced in going to the temple. And I had developed a system of what you got to do to get wisdom at the temple is you got to go with a question in mind. You got to be either something in my life that I'm not really sure what to do about, or something like doctrinally that I'm like trying to understand better, like have one specific thing and then go do all the temple stuff and be thinking about it and see if there's anything that kind of like reminds you of it, or anything that's like, oh, I feel really good about this and I'm asking about this, so that means this. That's like that was my like trick to like get meaning out of the temple. I don't want to bash on the temple too much because I think that there might be people listening to this who still value their temple experience, but I will also say there are people listening to this who have never had a good experience in the temple and probably never will. So I will say your temple experience is valid no matter what. If you are curious about the temple and you are like didn't go to the temple and you want to know what it's like, there's lots of stuff on YouTube that talk about what actually happens. Um, I do want to point out the little cheeky thing that I say at the end of my journal here. I say, no matter our calling or the place we are, we will always be anxiously engaged. And that is like, we're supposed to be anxiously engaged in the work as missionaries. But Sister Elliot and Sister Rowley were going home, and of course, the ultimate calling for a woman is not to be a sister missionary, but to be an eternal companion, a wife. Um, so the hope is that they go home and they're soon anxiously engaged for marriage. Little funny I made in my journal. Okay, so let's talk about what happened after the temple. The transfer train came. After taking temple pictures, I hugged my goodbye to Sister Elliot and unleashed the water gates. It felt so strange being with Sister Pattison, but we were also bonded by our common mourning, especially as we would both really miss both of our companions. The Greggs, the sweethearts, saw that we were both rather sad and treated us to a lunch at Mackenzie River, a restaurant founded by a group of doctors with food just as expensive and health conscious as it sounds. It was super weird also because at that point, we both had two separate areas to cover, and we each had a phone, AP style. AP meaning assistant to the president. I totally started to really take over the area then, smiley face. But anyway, I had fun sharing a pizza and salad with Sister Pattison. The dishes needed to be lactose, gluten, and sugar-free, so it was a bit of a process deciding, but the experience, cheeseless pizza, was exciting and delicious. They let us stop again at their home. We took pictures and wept a few more moments, then climbed into our truck and prayed and cried, and then went on our way. Long day, right? Well, we are halfway through. Phew! It was about an hour getting back to Scranton, and then we had to go to Nome. It was a pretty nice drive, but when we were about 15 miles out of Nome, at about 8:30 p.m., I realized that the apartment keys had been left in our car door in Grand Forks. We pulled over and tried to call the landlord, but it was late and he couldn't answer. I called Brother Kruger and let him know our situation, and although he sincerely and kindly offered to break into our door, we felt that would not be good as representatives of Christ, and made the decision we'd better just go back to Scranton. It was just very sad because we were supposed to be the speakers for their group meeting the next day, but Sister Pattison had accidentally left her talk in Bismarck, and I prayed and felt like we'd better not be in Nome, and one thing after another seemed to be pointing us back to Scranton. So poor sick Sister Pattison got us back on the highway, and we drove back to Scranton. We were pretty exhausted. Wow, that's the day that I say my farewells then to Sister Elliot, and she's just gone now. Isn't that crazy? We were like together constantly, and then we go to the temple, which is not normal. It's not normal to like have a temple session right at the end of your mission, but it worked out that way, and at the time we felt super lucky about it. But yeah, um, there are a few things I saw that I thought I wanted to talk about, and No, now I think I just want to say there were many things in there that was wild, but I think just the one I want to highlight is the whole like I prayed and felt like we'd better not be in Nome, and one thing after another seemed to be pointing us back. Yeah, so what was going on there was it was like dark and kind of scary at night, and I had been getting my like sort of anxiety stuff like fed more and more. So at this point, whenever I felt anxious about something, like it really felt like a spiritual prompting, and I never really felt like super safe in our gnome apartment. I don't really know why. It was probably just like I was just kind of jumpy. It felt spooky. I think it was totally fine, but I just didn't want to be there. So I think I thought it was the spirit, but I also think that I sort of knew that I just was like spooked. It was spooky there. It felt spooky, but I also like double double. It's like, well, I think I just am nervous there, but I was like, well, if I feel nervous there, that means it's the spirit, you know? Ugh. Oh, and I guess I also said for their group meeting, we were supposed to be speakers for the group meeting the next day. I will explain. I was making sure to use the proper language because I knew that was very important. And the proper language was that the ward in the area was the Scranton ward, and they couldn't call their church meetings like ward church meetings that they were trying to do in Nome because that title was taken by the Scranton church. So if they were going to have other meetings in technically the boundaries of the Scranton ward, they have to call it a group meeting. So when I say we're supposed to be talking in group meeting, it meant we were supposed to be talking in church, like talking in sacrament meeting. Okay, here's the last day. Sunday, November 23rd, 2014, Mission Day 54. I love Sister Pattison. I learned so much from her, smiley face. So last night she warned me that her voice would probably be gone today, and that did indeed come to pass. She totally sounds like Leah with her sick whispers. They just sound the same when they're sick. I don't know. But it makes me happy, smiley face. It's super fun to teach with her because I feel zero stress / I have no anxiety that she disapproves of what I might say. It's so easy to communicate. I'm totally going to apply this with Sister Johnson when she comes. Sister Johnson was going to be my next companion. Ho ho. Also, was Scranton. Oh. Also, Scranton was really and truly made a ward today with a potluck to prove it. Sister Pattison taught me well by her example of how we can really be introduced and get to know the members, and I'm so excited to continue that path. She also gets along super well with the Martins, smiley face. This is going to be a good couple days up here in Grand Forks. We drove up after church, and we will be here until transfers on Tuesday. Wow. So it's funny that I was like having such like a rebound, so much fun with Sister Pattison and saying like it's so easy to teach with her and it feels so easy to communicate, which at the time didn't feel strange to me at all, but now looking back I'm like she's sick and she can't talk. Like so obviously it's easy to like have a back and forth with someone who can't talk and it's just mostly me. Oh, that made me laugh reading through it this time. Um, I gotta tell little Sister Finlinson that probably your new companion won't constantly have a lost voice, so it won't be the same. It won't be the same, you know? And then, of course, we were not in Scranton anymore. We were briefly in Scranton. So much driving this week and the next week. We drove to Scranton, and then we drove to Nome, and then we couldn't get into Nome, so we drove back to Scranton, and then after church we drove to Grand Forks, and we were gonna be there in Sister Patterson's area until transfers, where I would pick up Sister Johnson and go back to Scranton for reals. So, yeah, that's me. That's me with my intermediate companion, Sister Patterson, because both our companions were gone. And now here I am waiting for trainer number 2. So that's my 8th week as a Mormon sister missionary. Make sure to subscribe or follow this podcast if you want to continue following my story. Ratings and reviews are very appreciated. If you'd like to financially support this or my other creative work, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Ally Christiansen. I hope you have a great week, and if you want my advice, just remember that you can love others best when you love yourself first. Bye!